Greetings gamers everywhere, I'm Swip92 and this is Duskfade, a action-adventure platform game with some Metroidvania sprinkled on top. The game's first impressions were good to me. The story, the exploration, the combat, the characters, the world and environments. And for the most part of the game, it all holds up all the way through to the end. I will talk about each of these things in the video with a summary at the end. Feel free to skip to that part, but if you want more details about certain parts in the game, check out the parts you're interested in. There's no major story spoiling in the video. All the footage is from the first area up until the first boss. Not the final boss of the first area, but the first boss you encounter. So let's get right into it. First off, the story. The story is decent. It has a classic feel to it that doesn't feel unwelcome, and it delivers it all in a unique enough way that doesn't make me want to skip the cutscenes, but also as well as listen to the characters and the story that is unfolding. Now, one of the things that makes the story better than what it really is in terms of just storytelling is the way it is delivered, both by the characters but also its overall message. Now you control Syrian, the younger brother, I should say, to Alira, a clockmaker, a big thing in this world, who has locked herself up in her workshop after their grandpa died. Basically Alira's mentor. Explosion occurs from the workshop and a big clock tower appears. Now your sister gets trapped inside the clock tower while you manage to escape. So you must now break the chains that are linked to the clock tower to free your sister and restore the world to what it once was. On your way you will have to fight weird ink enemies, yes, ink enemies, that's the way they're described, get through some platforming areas, and if you want, find the collectibles to upgrade your weapon with new combos and attacks. Following you is the mechanical bird Cuckoo that Alira built. And Cuckoo and all of these characters are voiced, so they're really well done. They're not voiced in all parts of the game, but in cutscenes they are fully voiced. And I think they're doing a good job there. The game has a clear message to tell that I think pretty much everyone can relate to in a way. And I really like that. It doesn't feel overblown, and there's no off-putting Marvel comedy in the middle of a serious cutscene. The voice acting is good, as I said, with all characters that are in a cutscene. At least that are being voiced. All the major characters you could say are voiced. As well as some of the bosses and midpoint bosses are also voiced, and those are delivered, well, they're delivered. Most lines, I would say, are delivered in a solid way that really gives some emotions behind it. But I do say most lines, especially from Syrian. Those can be a bit weak at some points in the story. And some facial animations can be weird looking in some cutscenes, but that could perhaps be because of my settings in the graphics. I can't remember what my settings are actually. Now all of these do combine into a really solid story that I think is pretty timeless. It's a hero's journey. The world in Duskfade is quite different from one another. Now each chain that is linked to the tower is also linked to different parts of the world, which are all unique from each other, and I think the different areas are really solid and the design is really good. There are some jagged edges to things, especially during cutscenes, but nothing that takes away from the enjoyment or immersion, at least not to me. And each different area could be considered a different biome, but what I like is that you don't walk out of the hub area and just suddenly find yourself in a completely different biome. Like you don't walk out and suddenly you're in a desert, or you walk through a different door and suddenly you're in a snowy mountain or something. The hub area is Tick Town. This is where you can upgrade your character's weapons and tools. You can also customize the look of your sword and Syrian's clothes. Now those are only cosmetic and doesn't change your stats in any way. The cloud people that also live in this town are really fun. You can interact with all of them, talk to them a little bit, and they all look great. It's a simple style to them, but it's nice. They look so fluffy, you just want to hug them. The exploration is the best thing, I would argue. I did mention Metrovania earlier, and here is where that mechanic shows itself. As you progress the story, you will unlock tools that will allow you to traverse the world a bit more. This can unlock shortcuts in previous areas or just give you access to new parts of an area. There are also multiple collectibles to collect in the game, and as much as I like finding new parts of an area and getting a reward for that, getting cosmetic items isn't always the reward I want. Sometimes you just want that cog wheel so that you can upgrade your weapon, and some things are really well hidden. Now, another thing you will need to upgrade is the crystals that you collect, but those are mainly collected from chests that you find everywhere or just enemies and other stuff that you break, so those come in droves. Now, what is a little bit annoying is that those cap at 9,999, which is easier to get to than it sounds like. Anyway, I enjoy the exploration and finding the hidden stuff, but when most of the stuff comes down to cosmetic stuff, it just isn't that rewarding after a while. There's fast travel between certain fast travel platforms. There's one for each area, with every chain having about 4 areas to go through, plus the boss room, which gives you a 5th fast travel platform for each chain, basically. Each chain consists of 4 areas plus the boss room. When you fast travel, you can see which collectibles and how many you have left to collect in each area, and that helps a lot. What doesn't help is that there's no minimap of an area to pull up, and the fast travel platform is for the most part in the middle of an area, not at the start or end. This can confuse you at times if you return to an area you haven't been in a while. Some areas can also be quite big when you traverse them, even annoying in some cases, as some platforming challenges are more difficult than others. I think the game would have benefited from having a minimap of an area, so that you could at least see where you have found some collectibles. Maybe even have like a Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor kind of map, where markings that shows you where you have been and not been. For example, there's a red icon if you can't traverse to that location yet, and there's a yellow icon if you can traverse that but you haven't been there yet, and a green if you have been there. Now you can continue to explore and finding all the collectibles after completing the game's story. Your save file's last saved location will revert back to Tick Town, and you can continue on from there. It's too bad they didn't integrate that into the story more, but as long as you can continue with the finishing story in some way, I'm good. As I said, a minimap would have been great. Maybe a gift from Alira, the sister, after finishing the game and rescuing her. That would be a nice reward for finishing the story. Overall, I do like the exploration and the platforming. It's really good, if a bit too easy at times, actually. It can definitely feel too easy at the start. It does get a little bit more challenging as you progress, but I would maybe not for those who play these types of games more regularly than me. There are a few sections that almost feel a bit overly done also, where you also almost need a pixel perfect jump and timing. These places and some others feel a bit rushed, or maybe not just tested properly, or it could be that I did something wrong. That's also a possibility. Combat is divisive, to say the least. It's definitely the weakest part of the game, even if it's quite simple, which isn't a bad thing, and I liked the combat at first. It did feel simple, even a tad one-sided, but as I progressed it did become a bit more flexible and fun towards the middle. But then it shifted towards the end, as it became mostly frustrating honestly. Mostly due to the sheer number of enemies that could spawn, and there's no way you can do a no-hit run in this game, and take that as a challenge or as a whiny comment, whatever. But the amount of enemies at the same time just made it chaotic, and not in a good way. There's good chaotic and bad chaotic, and to me this was bad. At first I liked having to face new enemies, performing perfect dodges, using abilities and such to defeat my foes. Towards the middle I had some more abilities to use and combos to utilize, and I had some fun with that. Towards the end, yeah, I kept using basically the one ability, because it made me invulnerable for a short duration, and because I could barely move with the amount of enemies. Just sheer number of attacks coming my way all the time. It just overwhelmed me. It became a attack, dodge, attack, dodge, attack, attack, dodge kind of dance. It's like salsa or something, I don't know. I really like the enemy design. The different types of enemies are solid, and each area introduces new types. That's great. But when you get to the later locations and every type of enemy can spawn, and a lot of them do spawn, mostly in waves in most combat scenarios, it just becomes pure chaos. Most enemies also requires a good amount of hits before dying, as there is no way to outright increase your damage. So even enemies that you encounter in that first area, the first enemy you face ever, will take 2 or 3 hits to kill. Most enemies, much more than that. If you don't want spoiler about a certain type of enemy, jump to this timestamp that I'm hopefully remembering to put in. As for the rest of you, I'm gonna tell you about an enemy that made my blood boil. You encounter this enemy after the 4th boss. I wanna say it is. I could be wrong about that, but either way, it's an enemy that is invulnerable to all damage except your abilities. Hitting it with your sword, you can stun it after a few hits and then kill it. To kill it, you need to use an ability. Your first ability you get, the shotgun blast, is the easiest one to use for this. It doesn't require that much focus, and it's quick to use. You will need to hit enemies to get back that focus, so that you can use it multiple times, because this enemy doesn't react to any type of weapon attacks either, so it will just keep on attacking no matter what you do. In some combat encounters you will have to fight multiple of these, and on occasion other type of enemies as well at the same time. Again, it just becomes a frustrating dance of attacking and dodging that isn't fun. Having some enemies that require some tactic is nice. There are that type of enemies in the game. But an enemy that just relentlessly attacks, and quickly too, plus invulnerable, that's just annoying. On the standard difficulty that I was playing at, you can't take too many hits, but you do have health potions that you can use, and there are plenty of crates that you can break that have health potions in them, and these health potions do heal a full health, your full 100% health. Plus, each checkpoint you reach gives you back any health you're missing. Now, I played the game on the standard difficulty, as I said, and if you truly want a challenge, you should try the hardest one. Standard difficulty in terms of combat is pretty easy, until you get to the later stage where everything is just chaos. Dying doesn't cost you anything, so there's that, but except for the time to get back to the location where you were when you died, of course. And there's no fall damage when jumping from platform to platform or down to a platform, but missing a platform and falling down those classic endless chasms will result in a small amount of damage. Now, most boss battles are really nice though. I say most because some of the later boss fights turns into too much of a platforming challenge. It breaks the pacing of the boss battle a bit too much, in my opinion. All bosses have a set amount of times where they will make themselves untargetable or similar things, well, you will have to traverse some kind of platforming challenge before you can damage them again. This works for most bosses, and it is a platforming game mainly, so yeah, alright. But to me, these challenges shouldn't be too long, and in some fights that's what they are, or at least they can feel. The design of the bosses are nice. I really like the design. The fights with the platforming, that can take away the whole thing, but the character design, those are really good. And just like the other characters in the game, they do feel unique, they look unique, and they're unique in both how they fight and what they do and how they're designed. In summary, I can recommend the game if you like this type of platforming adventure game, like Kingdom Hearts, which I have never played, just FYI. However, there are frustrating parts to the game that does stretch the game time in a way that makes the game less enjoyable. The story is good and a good message overall, but also a bit predictable. The world looks great and I do like the design, same with all the characters. The exploration is the center of the game, as it should be, I think, and I really like it. All the collecting without a minimap to keep track of everything together, with a Metrovania kind of need the right tool for this progression for collectibles, becomes a bit of a chore towards the end when you have all the tools. You have all the tools, but yeah, where to use them? You just have to run around like a headless hen and see if you can find them. Now, even a blind hen does find food, but whatever. Combat is decent at first, better towards the middle, and to the point of pure chaos towards the end, where everything becomes a attack and dodge fest, which doesn't feel good. So it starts off decent, goes to good, and then just goes to no, don't like it. There's no real tactic at the end, just attack and dodge over and over, and then drink a potion when you need to. Hopefully you'll survive. The combat never really turned difficult, just stressful, you could say. It's a bit boring. Boss battles, though, are good. There's the problem with the repeating pads of platforming challenges in between stages, or what you want to call it, breaks the pacing. The bosses themselves, their attacks and such, those are unique from each boss and really good. I did enjoy the boss battles in that regard. However, we come to the final question. Is it worth full price? That's a tough one. I want to say yes, but at the same time, maybe not. When one is torn between those two, it probably isn't worth it. Not to me. The game is roughly 12 hours long. That's a good amount, I would say, for this type of game. These 12 hours are with a decent amount of exploring, very little backtracking, i.e. returning to previous areas to collect collectibles, and also dying a few times and having to redo a few things because of that. I technically bought it at release, which wasn't full price. I got a good amount of time in the game. I think 12-13 hours is a good amount of time, but I do wish I could enjoy collecting everything a bit more, so that I would have a bigger reason to do that, or at least enjoy that more, so that I would do it faster, I guess. Or a reason to replay the game, but there isn't much of a reason to replay the game. Not right after playing it, the first time at least, because there's no way of really playing it in any other way. So yeah, you played it once, well, there you go, 12 hours done, time to go home. No, it's time to end this video, that's what it is. This has been my video of Duskfade. What do you think? Do you have any thoughts on the game? Put it down in the comments. I've been Swip92, have a great life, and I hope to see you in future videos. Bye bye.